All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fun week of Thrive Live. Today's topic is going to be exciting. It's all about sex, feeling sexy, loving our bodies, and helping get our libido up. So, in my opinion, libido is much more than just about the act of having sex. A healthy libido is part of our whole body health. It's emotional health, mental health, physical health. I think that libido is very much connected with self-awareness, our self-love, connection with our partners. And libido is very much a taboo subject. And that's something that, one, I wish it wasn't as taboo. And two, it's an important thing to address when it comes to our whole body health. And not just even from this self-love, self-awareness side, which is hugely important by itself, but when libido is low, it's a sign that we need to look deeper into the body at what the heck is going on inside our bodies. One of these other big billboards, just much like how hypertension is a sign, high cholesterol is a sign, low libido is another sign that our body is saying, hey, knocking on my door, wake up, you need some support. It's trying to tell us that our hormones are out of whack or something else is going on. So let's first talk about what are some things that lower libido. So when your libido is low, what is your body trying to tell you? And there's a lot of factors here. So as I start talking through this, and if you're having low libido, just jot down a couple things that you think might be going on. So the first one is stress and fatigue. I kind of throw them into the same category because commonly they cause each other. They're the snowball rolling down the hill. And so we will, if you're stressed out, that is one of the quickest way to kill libido. If you're exhausted, that's probably the second fastest way to kill libido. And when it comes to the adrenal function, we have our cortisol, our stress hormone that goes up when we wake up and it goes down throughout the day. So I have seen that in cases of both high cortisol and low cortisol, you're not going to have libido. So think high cortisol is your acute stress response. Low cortisol is your chronic stress response where your adrenals burn out and you get that tired and wired state. So if you're in a tired and wired state, of course you're not going to have a libido because you're exhausted and you're wired. So that's probably the first way to kill a libido. The second one, which is very common, is pelvic floor pain. And this actually follows great with our last week discussion on pelvic floor with Dr. Liv. And so that could be any pain in our pelvic floor in any of those structures, those ligaments that are muscles that make the act of sex painful. But it could also be vulvar pain. So it could be vaginal dryness and the tissue gets really irritated, which we'll see with low estrogen. We'll even see it with subclinical vaginal infections, yeast infections, BV. That's going to create like a burning irritation. And then, so of course, if you're having pain in that region, then of course you're not going to want to have sex. Third is hormones. That's usually almost the number one focus when people think of libido. So namely our progesterone, testosterone, estrogen. So one of the quickest ways to kill it is with birth control. Birth control is doing exactly what it's designed to do. It's designed to drop your hormones to suppress ovulation. So of course you're not going to have a libido because it's suppressing your entire endocrine axis. Postpartum, after you deliver that baby, your hormones go through this massive drop. So it's common to have your libido go up when you're pregnant because your hormones are surging and then they just plummet after delivery. And there's also the other aspect of when you're actually breastfeeding, the hormone prolactin goes up, and prolactin basically acts like a birth control at a high enough level where it suppresses your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone. So I get this question all the time from my new moms of how come I have no libido? Well, you're breastfeeding and the prolactin, the hormone which triggers milk production, is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's working exactly how it's designed in our body, just to produce milk, not to create an ovulation, not to have your healthy sex hormones up. And then, of course, perimenopause and menopause, you're having a natural drop in these hormones. And so that in themselves are going to lower your libido because you need all of these hormones to help the libido. And the hormones are all about a balance. And I'm taking this word from actually one of my Thrive Tribers. I love it. We were talking about her case the other week, and she's one of my complex cases. And we're talking about health is this orchestra, and I love it. And libido is the same. It's this orchestra in the body, right? It's an orchestra between balancing the sex hormones and the sleep and the adrenals and the stress. And it's never just one pinpoint thing. And I love this idea. We're getting the orchestra to work together. Going back to the postpartum piece. So we talked about how that prolactin hormone goes up to suppress your sex hormones. There's also body dysmorphia. And of course, we'll also see this in menopause too. Your body just starts to change. And even as a doctor, to be honest, I was shocked when I had both my kids with my body dysmorphia that came out. And I never really was someone who thought I had much body dysmorphia. And then you have a kid and your body just changes. And so it's just kind of being aware of those points of transition can just play around with our head a little bit. And the other aspect of postpartum is your stress goes up, your sleep gets disrupted because you have a baby that you have to feed every 2 hours. So of course that's going to feed back to the stress hormones, that fatigue that we talked about. And so other aspects that will just tank that libido, the medications, specifically the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so your SSRIs, you need serotonin for a sex drive. So those medications are going to be playing around with your serotonin levels. We actually need more than just serotonin. We need all of our brain chemicals balanced. So there's more than just that particular line of medications that are going to disrupt libido, but that is one of the more talked about ones. Poor sleep. Sleep affects our circadian cycle, our adrenals, our sex hormone release. The circadian cycle is about how our entire endocrine system is going to be releasing hormones at particular times in the day. So if we're not getting a regular circadian cycle, a regular sleep pattern, then all of our hormones are going to be thrown off, not just the ovarian and the sex hormones. We're talking thyroid, we're talking adrenal. It throws off the entire circadian cycle of the body. And that you don't even have to be having a line of work that puts you on a shifted sleep schedule. Think, my ER nurses or my paramedics who are working the night shift. It could just be not having a consistent bedtime, not having a good sleep is going to disrupt that circadian cycle. And relationships. And the lack of connection, lack of trust, poor communication with our partner. And I'll talk about more creative ways to get into this later on, but the Gottman Institute is one of my favorite. That's a couple, I believe they're out of Washington, and they have a free newsletter that you can subscribe to, and it's all about increasing your connection, your trust, your communication with your partner, and how to learn about the psychology of if they're giving you a bid, they're saying, hey, I need some attention right here. It's not just sexual. It could be, okay, I'm trying to connect to you and tell you about my day, about how to turn to that bid, not to just shut them off. So that is a phenomenal resource. It's a couple, I would look them up, the Gottman Institute. They also have some card games to help you stimulate conversation with your partner, to reconnect into that trust, communication, build that up. And then some other areas, depression, anxiety, those are going to shut off your libido pretty quickly. Smoking and recreational drug use. Smoking specifically reduces blood flow. So we're reducing blood flow to the arousal tissue. That's a pretty quick way to clear, to not be able to hit that orgasm, right? You're not arousing that tissue. Exercise. So regular aerobic exercise and even strength training are going to improve body image, improve your self-awareness, but it also really improves your mood through your endorphin release, your serotonin, all your mood chemicals are going to go up. So not only are you going to boost your libido, you're going to, generally speaking, feel more joy, feel more balanced in your mental and emotional state. Food, as Hippocrates said, food is the foundation for our body. It's the foundation of medicine. So poor quality food, so think of inflammatory foods, processed food, sugars. For some people it's gluten, other people it's dairy. These inflammatory foods increases inflammation in the body, which is it can disrupt, kind of imbalance that endocrine axis. So we're imbalancing that estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. It also literally irritates the brain. So we go back and we talk about what brain chemicals you need to have a libido. We need to have a healthy level of our dopamine, endorphins, serotonin. But if our brain is getting irritated with inflammation, then the brain's not going to be very happy. It's going to have trouble having that balance in the brain chemicals. And then lack of protein, lack of good fat. So you just need those for a healthy diet, healthy brain, healthy immune function, everything. And a couple key nutrients. These are the ones that are going to be more cofactors for hormone balance. Vitamin D, I'd say, is the number one, hands down. It actually acts more as a hormone than a vitamin, and kind of has a steroid effect in the body. The B vitamins and your minerals and selenium. So, and then lastly, because I could keep going on this list of what lowers libido, which is not as much fun to talk about. Lastly, is just going to be other medical conditions. So, you'll get a domino into the libido realm. If your joints hurt because you got arthritis, if you're diabetic because your blood sugar is going up and down, you have neurological disease. So it can also be very much a physical aspect that is playing into the libido realm. So now let's get to the fun stuff. Now let's talk about how do we get the libido up. So step one is figure out the cause, which you guys all probably figured I was going to say that. So go back through that list. If there's anything that we just talked about that kind of pinged up of being like, oh, hey, I think I know I need to focus on the sleep, or I'd like to feel more connected with my partner. Just jot that down. That is going to be the place to start, because that's going to be more of what's the root cause of your libido. Step two is address that issue. So this is where we're going to have fun. So we'll just start with sleep. And we did a great sleep Thrive Live series on a lot of good, easy takeaways to reset your sleep cycle. You can go and look back in the archives. But what we see in the research is that longer sleep duration is correlated with greater sexual desire, even just during the day, and the insomnia and poor sleep quality is associated with decreased sexual function. So if you think that sleep is on your list of kicking out your libido, there is some key tricks to start now. Really get that technology fast in an hour before going to bed. Cut out all the blue lights, or get a pair of blue light glasses. I love mine. Calm down your nervous system. Take a hot shower. Take some magnesium, melatonin, valerian. It doesn't even have to be a sexy board game, but just play a board game with your partner. My husband and I have had it's taken us 6 years of having kids to figure out how do we reconnect in the evening as a couple, just to build that connection. And it doesn't have to be sexy. It could be games. So we've gotten into playing board games. And you can even Google coffee house board games, and there's a ton that come up if that's something that interests you as a way to reconnect with your partner. That also is a way to get technology out of the picture, so you get into a better sleep. So you get a 2-for-1 there. Exercise. So exercise will improve your sleep. Weight-bearing exercise will increase testosterone, which is one of the key hormones for libido. It will have a bigger effect in the men than women, but we'll still get that effect. And then cardio, and really kind of all exercises are going to be increasing our mood chemicals like we discussed. So the endorphins, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. We need these to reduce our stress, have a happier outlook. You do get increased connection with your body, and that all dominoes positively into the libido realm. And exercise also improves our sense of self-love and body awareness. Now, the only caveat I hear is let's be gentle with our bodies. especially with all the body dysmorphia that we love to put on ourselves as women, and that we just see within our social media. And, you know, let's love our curves. Let's be proud of our body, no matter what it looks like. You know, do a little sexy dance to celebrate your body. Yoga is definitely one of my favorite exercises to improve self-love and self-awareness, besides doing a little sexy dance. That yoga is gentle on the body. I find it's a very loving exercise, and there's a host of benefits to it. Stress. So if stress was ticking on your list, think about the ways that help you improve your stress. So there's multiple ways to get to the top of the mountain with this one. Is it exercise? Is it meditation? Is it just gratitude? And you could just easily write down what I use my calendar, my planner, as a way to kind of combine all of these. So you could just write down, okay, I'm grateful for this today. I'm grateful for my body. I'm grateful for my partner. I'm just grateful for my kids, or whatever you want to do. Journaling, just focusing on deep breathing to reset your autonomic nervous system response. Counseling, if you want to go there. So there are a ton of different areas. Meditation, if you're gravitate towards that, there's Calm, which I believe is still free. Might have changed since I last looked at it. My favorite is Headspace, because I like the voice. And you can even just do a 3-minute meditation, right? It doesn't have to be a 30-minute meditation. Make it doable, make it fit for your life. Don't try and you'll be way more successful by doing things to small things, as opposed to, okay, I'm going to go do an hour meditation 1 day a week. It will work much better if you just focus on little things. And then if you need more on the supplement side, I just threw this in because it's fun to talk about too. The amino acids, GABA, theanine, are calming for the nervous system. Magnesium is very calming, and lavender is one of my favorite herbs. We have Integrative Therapeutics makes, probably most of you, I've given this to you at some point. It's lavender in a pill, and we call them happy Tic Tacs in the office because they look like Tic Tacs and they make you happy. What else do you want out of life? And so then moving on. All right, so adrenals and sex hormones. So I kind of lump these together because the adrenals are like the cheerleaders for the sex hormones. So they're dancing together in a partnership. And when we're stressed, the cortisol, the adrenal response, actually pulls out of your sex hormones. So there is a dynamic between the two. So one of the easiest ways to support your adrenals is actually by eating breakfast. Eating breakfast that's protein based on protein, fat, that gives that blood sugar stability, which calms the adrenals down for the day. Otherwise, in terms of herbs, probably everyone has heard about maca. Maca is used as a libido herb because it increases estrogen and testosterone, but it also helps to balance out the adrenals. My only caution here is maca is one of the strongest ginsengs that I have found. So there's multiple ginsengs, and some are going to be more subtle than others. Maca is extremely strong. So the side effect that I have seen before is irritability, and you get it within 48 hours after taking maca. You know if maca is too strong for you within 48 hours, or your loved one will know within 48 hours. Ashwagandha, another herb that I love, is much more calming to the adrenal system. It improves that thyroid conversion, increases that GABA in the brain, that amino acid. Alcohol increases GABA. So GABA is very addicting to our brain. It's also very calming. So there's different ways to go about increasing GABA besides alcohol, but it's hitting that same positive feedback pathway in the brain, which is actually partly why alcohol is so addicting, is because it increases that GABA. Which ashwagandha will as well. Rhodiola, I love rhodiola, especially with my breastfeeding mothers, because we can give it during that time. But it's a true adrenal adaptogen where it's going to help support normalization of that stress adrenal response when you're under stressful situations. So it's used with athletes, it's used under mental emotional stress. And of course, as you support your adrenals, that dominoes into the sex hormones and helps your sex hormones balance so your libido goes up. Now, let's talk about low sex hormones when the cause is not due to birth control or breastfeeding or menopause. It's much harder to address the sex hormones directly because, right, there's a root cause for why your sex hormones are imbalanced. So that could be thyroid, that could be stress, that could be immune system dysfunction, inflammation, gut dysbiosis. So my caveat and caution here is that if your sex hormones are not due to just a frank depletion, so birth control, menopause, postpartum, there is most likely another cause that's causing it, and go find that other cause first. I mean, you can still work on increasing your hormones, but keep asking the question, why? Why are my hormones doing this? Why do I need that adrenal support to support the hormones? Until you get to the end of your why questions, then you know you've hit the root cause of it. And if you don't treat the root cause of the hormone balance, you just run a higher risk of over-treating your hormones. So you can go in with a more hormone-specific balancing herb, or you can go in more with progesterone or estrogen or the phyto versions, the herbal versions of those that are lookalikes to the hormones. And if that's not the root cause, you'll just have a higher risk of overtreating, easier, and having a little bit harder time stabilizing. But when the cause is due to low hormones, then we can do the bioidentical hormones, the estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. We also have the phyto hormones. So the yam is a phytoprogesterone, soy is a phytoestrogen. And anytime we go in to do those, we still want to support the rest of the endocrine organs, so the thyroid, the adrenals, because they're the cheerleaders for our hormones. Now, let's talk about self-love. So I guess we kind of probably already talked a lot about this and the body dysmorphia, and unfortunately Hollywood does not do a very good job with helping to break our body dysmorphia culture. And it's just finding different ways to celebrate your body, embrace your body, love what your body provides, be grateful for your body, love your curves. And it's good to have reminders to love what our body does for us, not just physically, but also energetically, emotionally, give that gratitude back to our body for what we put it through on a daily basis, and it's still hanging around. So the key nutrients, link back into that one. So the number one is vitamin D. Get your vitamin D levels checked. Number two is going to be the B vitamins. The B vitamins are going to be used by your liver, but they're also going to be used by your genetics to help metabolize your estrogens out. And as we metabolize the estrogens out, then that's going to help bring the progesterone into balance. And libido is all about the balance of the hormones. And that's also where the selenium and the zinc come into play as well, as they are helping with the overall balance of those hormones. Now let's link back to the connection with our partners. And I also think this should probably be second to connection to ourself. We need to understand ourselves and love ourselves in order to understand our partner, and it just forms a healthier foundation. So there's the Gottman Institute. Highly recommend you check them out. Learning how to reach out to their bids for attention, even just talking to them, hand on the shoulder. Growing the non-sexy connections will help to grow the sexy connections. And learning how to bring romance back into the relationship. And this is very much more the taboo category. Vibrators, sex toys, sex games. There's different sex subscription boxes that you can get. The fantasy box is one of them, where they'll send you a box of toys basically for you and your partner, and you can say, we're both girls, we're both guys, whatever your affiliation is. they will send for that. And so that's a way to also bring more spice into your life. There's a reason why the sex industry is really has really grown, and especially with COVID, they've exploded. And with everyone being on quarantine, and if you're not comfortable with some of the sex toys, one, just start talking with your partner about it. Find what you're comfortable with, what you're not comfortable with, what your partner is comfortable with, where your partner is not comfortable with. But starting to expand into that realm, one can help grow trust, right? Because you're trusting with your partner that, okay, well, I don't feel comfortable with this, but let's talk about it. And they'll actually start to grow that trust. So even though all of the toys are definitely taboo, they can really expand that connection and trust and overall get the libido up. And it's a way to also kind of just bypass the anxiety, the fatigue, the depression, the physiological stuff by basically switching your brain with a tool. They're all tools to help with that. So let me know. I'll bring it up for questions at this point. I think, again, sex is a very integral part to our health, mental, emotionally, and physically. And I know while that list can be a little bit that we talked about of all the different ways that drops your libido can be a little bit overwhelming. That's where one, just focus on, okay, what was the most pressing thing that came out for you? And then, just take it in little chunks. And then if you need also another way to connect with your partner, find fun, creative ways. It doesn't have to be with the sex toys, but it can be with just a game board. It can be with the Government Institute emails, but finding ways to connect with your partner and yourself at the end of the day, after you've put the kids to bed, you've put work away, right? You've put all your demands from the day away, and you're left pretty exhausted. Finding creative ways to bring that spice back into the life is important. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, but feel free to ask away. Or thoughts, doesn't even have to be a question.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to comment that I never realized it years ago, but you're absolutely right about instead of just increasing hormones, like postmenopausal, getting everything else in line and addressing all the other underlying issues does make a huge difference.
Huge. Yeah. And I think that's where I would say the one issue is with like the sex industry per se, right? And if you look on Pinterest and be like, all right, 10 ways to increase your libido, and what comes up is that we're not approaching libido as a billboard, a sign that, okay, something deeper is happening in the body that we want to address that. Yes, I think it is important to make sure we address libido and sex and we find a way to bring the spice back into our life. But also, no, our body is trying to tell us something.
Yeah, exactly.
What's the underlying driven cause? And it can be really hard when, my God, at the end of the day, to try and connect with your partner when you've, done everything. Kids are in bed. You maybe took 2 hours to get the kids in bed and you've worked all day. You've done everything. And and sometimes you have to focus on yourself and you have to focus on that sleep to get there. And so it's just more things for us to think about. It's the orchestra of the body, right? It's understanding the orchestra of what's going on. And libido is just kind of that capstone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of starting on my journey early. So I think, you know, addressing some of the underlying conditions, knowing that my thyroid is kind of out of whack and have a lot of stress. I think once I start looking at those things, then I think I can start looking at, you know, what other methods would be helpful. I think another issue that I have is just us like aligning the time that we're, you know, that we want it. You know, like
Oh,
my husband told me
totally.
to sleep later than I do. I'm in bed at 9 and I'm like, don't bother me, you know.
Yep.
I'm trying to go to sleep. And so it's finding that time that we can schedule it and make sure we're both, you know, ready.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. My husband and I definitely struggle with that too. You know, just you're exhausted by the time the end of the day comes, and you know, there's different tricks and games. Maybe it's, you know, it doesn't sending your partner a text message in the middle of the day to kind of get the brain ramped up, and you can have a plan, but also know that like, well, it might not happen tonight. You know, it might take 3 hours to get the kids in bed, and you never know. But I think, you know, my husband and I are always commenting about this, how like marriage takes so much more work than dating, because we have to consciously not be complacent. We have to consciously be trying to pretend we're dating, consciously trying to make sure we're turning towards each other, not turning away when the other person comes at us with their bids. Even if it's just saying, hey, I want to talk to you about my day and I just need to put someone to put my hand on their shoulder. It doesn't have to be a sexy thing, you know, and learning how to bring creatively that sexy spice back, especially after kids, it takes way more work to have a marriage than to date.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, yeah, and there's a lot of, even if you want like a non-sexy subscription box, there are date night boxes that you can subscribe to, and they will ship you a date in a box once a month, which is pretty amazing, especially with COVID. And so that's even another way to build that connection. If you don't want it to be all about vibrators and lingerie and whatever the sexy box is going to ship, there are a ton. So if you just Google date night in a box, you'll see a ton. They've really populated in the last couple of years, probably even more so since COVID, because the last I looked was about a year ago. And that's a great way to do it with if you're trying to figure out what the heck do we do with date night, because we can't go out because of COVID. And it helps when someone else kind of does the planning as well. And it shows up and you're like, okay, this is what we're doing tonight. So, which is nice. Awesome. Well, I don't think I have anything else to add. I'll let you guys just kind of sit with that. But yeah, libido is so it's that orchestra. It's so multifactorial. And while you can do direct improvements with your libido by trying to bring in the sexy games or even non-sexy games, but still taking that moment to look at, okay, well, what's the underlying cause? What am I missing that's tanking that libido?
And you said that was date night in a box?
Yeah, so there is date night in the box. Let me pull it up. There's a ton. Okay, so if you want the sexy version, that's the fantasy box. If you want the non-sexy version,
you said it was called the sanity box?
Fantasy.
Oh, okay.
And there might be other sexy companies out there. There's date night in a box, non-sexy version. There is dateboxclub.com. There is createdwithlove.com. I think that's the one that we just tried, and that was just games. That was more of like, here's a scenario. You guys are going to pretend that you're going to Mars, and what are you going to pack? And it has some just like a lot of them will have some discussion, prompted discussion, then game. And Some will be more geared on cooking, some will be more geared on games, others will be more geared on discussion. So it's kind of there is a ton out there. Here we go. I can send you 11 best date night subscription boxes for couples. And they pull up Adults and Crafts. Yeah, Creators with Love is the one that we just did. Happily, I think we did Date Night in a Box. So again, that was, if you just Google 11 best date night subscription boxes, you're going to see a ton that pop up.
Okay, thank you.
And it's just really fun. I mean, if you're into more of there's the hunt for a killer, where it's more like the mystery thing, and it makes you guys work through the problem together. And it's just fun to have someone else plan a date night for you, especially with COVID. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to go out. It's just done. It shows up in a box, and all you have to do is open it. It works amazing, and it's a way to bring fun back into your life. So, yep.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, I'm going to get ready for my afternoon patients, but let me know if you guys have any other thoughts or questions that come up. So, and I hope this was very useful.
It was, thanks.
Good. All right, you guys have a great rest of the week and a good weekend.